data ultimately is going to show is that we're in a really unique time in the real estate market, where it's both an excellent time to be a seller, which will be very apparent by the data, but there's also a lot of compelling information as to why it's still a great time to be a buyer as well, which is kind of a unique place to be, to have both buyers and sellers having an advantage in the market. Now, clearly, it's been heavily favoring sellers over buyers, but still a good time to be a buyer as well. So let's jump in and I'll start sharing the details with you. Okay, the first slide we're looking at is depicting the number, oops, I don't know why we're off kilter here. The number of active listings, and this is looking at Poway. This is looking from January of 2017 up to current. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna try to turn this. I don't know how to do this. There we go. Okay, better? Okay, so here we've got the number of active listings. You can see we popped up, we were over 120 towards the beginning of 2017. Then you really saw at the end of 2017 into the beginning of 2018 is when we had a real tightening of inventory, which you're going to see correlates to when we really see values go up and different things happening here. Now you can see for 2018, you know, we've kind of zigzagged before. Now we've really been on an upward trend. You're probably noticing in your neighborhoods more for sale signs popping up around you, right? You're just seeing homes sitting on the market longer, as opposed to the end of 2017 when the market was so hot. Now, this correlates directly into the pending sales. Again, looking just at Poway, back in January 2017, we were sitting just around 50. We're zigzagging, which at the same time is when we had seen more inventory come into market during that period. Then again, end of 2017, you can see here, number of pending sales went down, as did the number of active listings at that time. But now what you're seeing is the number of pending sales decreasing, just like we had seen in 2018. But at that time, remember, we had inventory that was low at the same time the number of sales were low. But now we're coming down with lower sales when we're seeing inventory increasing. So this also ties into the months of supply of inventory. So just to define this number for you, we get this by taking the total quantity of homes for sale divided by the absorption rate, the pace of sales that typically happen in a zip code. So if you had 9 homes for sale, and on average, 3 homes typically sold per month, that gives you a 3-month supply of inventory. A normal market is considered to have 6 to 7 months of inventory. Anything below 6 months, technically a seller's market. Anything over 7 months, technically a buyer's market. And if you were to go back and look in 2008 during the recession, you would have seen months of inventory over a 13-month supply on average, which is a very strong buyer's market at that time. Well, we've been in a really strong seller's market. So again, looking at the median price point in Poway, January 2017, we're at about a 1.5 month supply. You can see we came up a little bit, still very low, under 2.5 month supply. And again, here, remember when we saw the inventory come down, really a tightening. We had just over a 1 month supply. And now again, you can see we've been on the upward trend, which again correlates directly to us seeing more listings come to market. Now, one reason we're seeing things sitting longer is interest rates. So first, let's look at where interest rates have been. So if we were to go back over a very long period of time, say 80 plus years, the average 30-year fixed interest rate is just under 6.25%. But if we go back just 45 years, the average 30-year fixed interest rate is 8.25%. And that's factoring in all these years that we've been at these historically low levels. Now, even at these low levels, you can see we've had a couple troughs. Interest rates are very quick to react. Now, both of these were government related. In 2013, the Fed announced quantitative easing. Basically, they were tapering back from buying mortgages. That had a negative impact on interest rates. The election in 2017, very positive for the stock market. had a negative impact on interest rates. Now, where are interest rates now? Well, the Mortgage Bankers Association, as well as Freddie Mac, had predicted for interest rates by the end of quarter 3, 2018 to be sitting about 4.8%. Well, we hit that a lot faster than they had anticipated. Interest rates today are sitting on average around 5%. So we're basically 1% higher than we were a year ago today. So why is this important to you as home sellers? Well, let's look at how this affects the buyers directly, and the forecast is for interest rates to continue to rise into the end of quarter 4 2019 to be at 5.3%. So this is titled the cost of waiting. So this is looking at the buyer who would have purchased in quarter 2 2017 as opposed to waiting into the future. So quarter 2 2017, a $500,000 mortgage at 3.75% is a payment of $2315.58. Fast forward quarter 2 2019, the same buyer with a mortgage now of $522,750, because we're factoring in a very modest level of appreciation at 3%. Now at 5%, that buyer's has a payment of $2806.24. So a difference of almost $500 a month, almost $6,000 a year, almost $177,000 over the life of a loan. So again, as rates are increasing, this is pushing buyers out, right? They can't keep up. Their income's not keeping up with the price of the homes, our values increasing, and the pace of interest rates. So another good example is the loss in purchasing power. This really puts it into perspective. When you look here, quarter 2 2017, a $649,000 mortgage at 3 7/8 is a payment of $3051.84. Quarter 2 2018, a $649,000 mortgage at 5 1/4 is now a payment of $3583.80. So in 2017, that buyer was able to purchase a home for $811,250. Now, with the increase in interest rates, to keep that payment at the $3051.84, they're buying a home at $698.25. So a loss of purchasing power of over $120,000. So this really just something, again, as sellers, to keep in mind that one of the main things that has been part of bringing our values back up was our artificially low interest rates. So now as they're increasing affordability for these buyers, you know, some of them, that's going out the window. Now let's look at where all these buyers are coming from. Now on average, 1.1 million households are formed per year. People getting married, getting a home together, having children, needing a larger home. Well, when the recession hit, this number dropped in half. But life was still happening. People still needed to consume new units of housing, but people were hurting, right? A lot of people lost their homes. People lost their jobs during the recession. We saw families combine households to make ends meet. So basically this pent-up demand for housing accumulated over the course of the recession, and we saw it begin to release into the market in 2015. So if you look here, the top is home ownership, the bottom is the rental market. 2004, 2005, home ownership was at a high, right? Everybody owned a home. People owned 2 and 3 homes, right? That was very common. Recession hit, we saw this just drop off. Then we really see a rush into the rental market in 2015, which you see quickly decrease as we see home ownership levels begin to increase at an above average pace. So this next slide for you as sellers is really important, because what this is showing is that the similar effect that we saw on the buyer side in the form of a pent-up demand for housing, we're now seeing in the form of a pent-up supply. If you look here from 2001 up to 2008, the average hold time of a home was 6 years. the recession hit and we saw this number begin to increase year over year, finally hitting a high of 10 years. But as we talked about on the buyer side, life's still happening for these sellers. Some people need to downsize still, get a larger home, maybe move out of state. But again, they've been holding back for one reason or another. So experts have forecasted that this pent-up supply will begin to release into the market, just as we saw on the buyer side, based on the 6-year average that we saw in the past. And we're seeing this happening already. We're now starting to come down, and we're seeing that inventory increase in the market as more sellers are coming to market. So to recap here, we've still got interest rates. Even though they're 1% higher than they were last year, you see it's still a great time for buyers to take advantage of 5% is a great rate. They've got much more purchasing power, as we saw by that $120,000 loss of buying power with that increase in interest rates, the almost $500 a month in payment. And with inventory levels, we're still at historically low levels, but now that we're seeing this increase in supply come to market, right now could be the opportune time as a seller to maximize your equity.
Thanks so much, Caroline.